Smoke is rolling down the side of the mountain like it's on fire, except nothing is burning. The whole camp below is shaking, not from wind, from the sound. A trumpet is blasting, and it isn't a man blowing it. It gets louder on its own, and every single person down in that camp knows exactly what's about to happen. The law is about to be given. The rules are coming. That's what they're bracing for. That's what most of us are bracing for too. Every time we open to Exodus 20, a list, a set of demands, the fine print of the covenant. But listen to what's actually said first before a single command shows up. Before you shall and before you shall not, Yahweh says something else, and it isn't a rule at all. I am Yahweh your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. That's it. That's the first sentence, not a demand, a memory. Most of us read straight past that verse to get to the part we think matters. You shall have no other gods. But that verse isn't the doorway to the 10 Commandments. It might be the whole reason any of the rest of them make sense. Stay with me. Look at the order here, because the order is the whole point. Yahweh does not say, obey these 10 things and then I will consider rescuing you. That sentence never appears anywhere in Exodus, not once. He says, I already brought you out. Past tense, finished, done before they ever reach this mountain. The Red Sea is already behind them. The plagues are already behind them. The slavery is already behind them. Every bit of the rescue happened before a single commandment was spoken. So when the commandments finally do start, in verse 3, they are not a ladder Israel has to climb to earn their freedom. They are instructions handed to a people who are already free on how to actually live like it. Think about how strange it would be if this were reversed. Imagine a father who says, prove to me you deserve to be part of this family, and maybe I'll come get you. That's not a father, that's a landlord, but that is not the God who speaks at this mountain. He already carried them out. Verse 2 isn't the fine print, it's the reason any of what follows is even possible to hear as good news instead of a threat. Look even closer at the wording, because every phrase in this one verse is doing work. I am Yahweh, not a title, not the divine force, or the Almighty in the abstract, a name, the personal name given at the burning bush, the name that means he is present, he is with them, he has not forgotten them, your God, not merely God out there, unattached, your God, possessive, personal. He is not introducing himself as a concept. He's introducing himself as theirs, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Two ways of saying the same thing, stacked for weight, out of the land, out of the house, out of the place, and out of the condition. Nowhere left to go back to, and nothing left to go back to it as. This is the same pattern that shows up again and again across Torah. Leviticus repeats a version of this exact line more than 24 times, almost every time a new command is given. I am Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Egypt. It isn't decoration, it's a signature. Every instruction in Torah is stamped with the same reminder. This isn't a stranger asking something of you. This is the one who already carried you out, asking you to walk like it. Here's something worth knowing, and it isn't in most English Bibles at all. In Hebrew, these aren't called the 10 Commandments. They're called the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 words, not 10 laws, 10 spoken words. And in the oldest Jewish counting of those 10 words, going back to the Talmud, verse 2, I am Yahweh your God who brought you out. Isn't the introduction before word 1? It is word 1, which means in that reading, the very first of the 10 words isn't a command at all. It's an identity. It's a rescue stated as fact that you are simply asked to receive and remember. Different traditions number the 10 differently, and this channel isn't rewriting how you were taught to count them. But even as a side door into the text, it's worth sitting with. Before the first rule ever gets spoken, the first thing you're handed is simply, you are already his, and you are already free. Now here's why the order of that verse changes everything about how the rest of the chapter should be read. There are two completely different reasons a person obeys. One is slavery logic, the other is sonship logic. Slavery logic says, obey or something bad happens to you. It's obedience driven by fear, and underneath the fear is always the same question. Am I doing enough to be safe? That kind of obedience never rests because it's never actually sure it's finished. Sonship logic says something completely different. You are already safe, already loved, already free. Now here's how to walk in a way that fits who you already are. The obedience isn't the price of the relationship, it's the shape of it. That's exactly the logic of verse 2. It is not obey me and I'll consider bringing you out. It is I already brought you out. Now walk like someone who has somewhere to belong. This is why the commandments that follow were never meant to feel like a bar you're straining to clear. They're meant to feel like a map handed to someone who's already home, showing them how to actually live there well. That is the difference between reading Torah as a threat and reading Torah as a gift. And the only thing that separates those two readings is whether you noticed verse 2. And in case this feels like an Old Testament idea that faded out by the time of the Messiah, it didn't. It's the same pattern, just spoken in different words. Paul writes it in Romans, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Not once we cleaned up while we were still in it. And in Ephesians, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. Grace first, not earned, a gift already given. But Paul doesn't stop there, and neither should we, because the very next verse says, for we are his workmanship, created in Messiah Yeshua for good works, which God prepared beforehand, that we should walk in them, saved by grace, then made for good works, in that order, every time. Yeshua says it too in his own words in John 14. If you love me, keep my commandments. Notice what comes first in that sentence, not keep my commandments and then I'll love you. Love first. Obedience as the response, not the requirement. Exodus 22 and Ephesians 2, 8-10 are the same sentence spoken 400 years apart in two different languages. Rescue first, response second. That order never changes from Sinai to the cross. So go back to that mountain one more time. The thunder is still there. The trumpet is still sounding, but listen to it differently now. That sound isn't a courtroom opening. It's not a warning shot before a list of demands. It's the sound of a father calling a people he already rescued to come close enough to hear how to live. Next time you read the 10 Commandments, try reading verse 2 slowly, the way it was meant to be read, not as the introduction you skip to get to the real content, as the reason the rest of it is good news at all. I am Yahweh, your God, who brought you out. Say that part first every time. Let it settle before you get to a single you shall or you shall not, because he doesn't need anything from you to love you. He already proved that before he asked for anything at all. Everything after verse 2 is just him showing you what that love looks like, lived out one day at a time. I want to know, before today, did you read Exodus 22 as part of the commandments, or did you skip straight to verse 3 like most of us were taught to? Tell me in the comments. And if you haven't seen it yet, go back and watch the full 10 Commandments video. This one was built to go deeper on the very first line of it. Subscribe if you want to keep walking through Torah verse by verse with me. Until next time, remember who brought you out.